Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen on this course, citizens have the right not to be exposed to the scare and disgust. So we need to protect and let the people take distance from such disgusting, socially regarded disgusting art. So we're extremely proud to propose this motion. I'm going to talk to you two things in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to talk about dire necessity of implementing this kind of restricting. And secondly, I'm going to provide you the legitimacy of the government to implement this kind of restricting. But before moving on to my own substantives, let me give you our model. I'm going to regulate public pornography or the grotesque violent movies. We are going to have the regulation against the pornography to that restrict that above 18 years old people just watch it. Or we will regulate the place that the pornography can be expressed. Like we will intervene the pornography on the wall. We will the pornographic art on the wall. So such kind of the restriction of the ages or the restriction will be done in our model. And also the grotesque movies cannot be broadcasting on TV on the golden time. Such kind of restriction will be done in our product. So let me move on to my first argument.
So if you're only going to restrict your places and ages and certain groups of people, that consequently means that certain other people can also watch and look at these art. What exactly and how would the problem that you analyze is going to change in the affirmative bench?
Sir.
I went to in our part. I went to the people who do not watch such kind of the art, which socially regarded disgusting, should be able to take distance from such kind of the art. That is our reason to propose this motion. So let me move on to my first argument. My first argument is that dire necessity of restricting this kind of art that socially regarded disgusting. The reason why we restrict is that people heard the light, not being afraid for reading or not forced to feel disgusted in the public. What happened in the opposition parliament? Like pornography on war is totally allowed in their parliament, like something like most things. Like in the case of the commuting area, that the female student or the male or young student go to the school along that way. In such ways, the public art on war, those things on war are allowed. The girl student may be embarrassed to see that, and even though they have to go along such ways, they will be embarrassed. And some poverty men will say to such female student, "Hey, look at that such pornographic art on wall." Maybe such female student can be embarrassed by such kind of experience. We want to eradicate such kind of experience without restricting. Many people will be embarrassed by the public pornography on the wall on the public. And secondly, in the case of the hate speech, yes, also in the Japan, minority of immigrants such as the Korean people are suffering from and struggling with the hate speech from the extreme right group. They are how can I say? They are said that by the extreme right group that Koreans should die, must die, get out from our society. Such kind of the extremely offensive words come on to such minority groups. Without intervention to that kind of their expression or something like that, people will suffer from the being afraid for walking outside. If such kind of hate speech can be, as long as such kind of hate speech belongs to the one kind of the expression, we can regard them as a kind of the art and expression. So we have to restrict such kind of the expression in order to avoid extremely feeling afraid of walking outside. And secondly, a legitimacy of the government should implement this restricting. Yeah, because it is hard for citizens within the citizen society to encounter that kind of the art. Because in the case of the hate speech, or maybe the Korean residents living in the city of Oakville, and because they are minority, even though they are said that you should opt out from our society, or that I will kill you, or something like that, and they are suffering from the infringing of their life. It is so hard, in no sense. It is so hard to prevent or stop such kind of expression or art. And also we say, of course, freedom of the expression is not absolute. Freedom of expression, yes. As a state, we aim to maximize the benefit of the society. And because the society is composed of the various kinds of people, so we want to balance out the benefit of the society. So when the gravity of harm of allowing the freedom of expression superior to the benefit of protecting expression, we're happy to intervene that. We're happy to restrict such kind of expression and art. So what have I told you in my speech, Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen? I told you, firstly, I talked about, there is a dire necessity of restricting because people have the right not being afraid for living in the society. Pornography on the world may embarrass the student or the people, and the hate speech may infringe the fundamental human right in the society. And secondly, I talked about government have the legitimacy to implement this social restricting. So for this reason, we're extremely proud to propose this.
I thank the Prime Minister for his speech. Now I call upon the Leader of Opposition to make the Opposition's case.
Mr. Speaker, what is the definition of grotesque horror movie? Or what is the definition of the pornography that they were talking about? We believe that there's no clear definition whatsoever. We believe that it is just a mere interpretation by those people who actually watch it. So we believe that when there's no clear exact definition of art, when it's just a mere interpretation that people feel, we believe that we should not restrict those things because it actually leads to individual's identity who's expressing it and also who's watching it, and which this identity we believe is really important because it leads to people's self-worth, people's identity, and we believe that actually social backlash still satisfies this situation, and because it's not the dire necessity, we want to oppose on the opening opposition. So based on this, two arguments in my speech today. Number one, whether the art is quantifiable or not. And number two, even if this art is quantifiable as a society, it's not legitimate. Is it still legitimate for the government to restrict this art? But before that, two clarifications against the government side. So they said that in their model, they can set the time and age and what to watch and where to watch and everything. But which means that they're not completely restricting it. We feel that they're not really sticking to the motion because you can still access to those situations. If you don't go to that time or age or those things, you can actually still watch, and the government side is actually not restricting. And also for the hate speech the Prime Minister talked about, we believe that we're talking about different things today. We're talking about art, which means that it's like a music or drawing, which actually leads to people's interpretations. Hate speech, because they're words, you actually know what that person wants to say. But for the art, it's different because it's just based on those interpretation of the what the people see and watch. So moving on to my first argument, whether art is quantifiable or not. So we think that art is based on the interpretation of those people. So for example, like in the Mona Lisa, the people have different opinions on what it's expressing, or even on those controversial art. We don't. It depends on the people to think if it's the drawing or music it's supporting white superiority or not. So we believe that there are different interpretations in the specific art. Why is this? Because people are going with different backgrounds and people have different thoughts and mindsets and goals in their mind. So we believe that it's actually because people don't think and act always in the same way. There's gonna be always different interpretation toward that art. And so which means that how you read or listen or look at those art is going to be different. So in this case, we believe that we cannot simply restrict those things because we cannot decide what is good or what is socially regarded disgusting art. If the government actually imposes those restrictions, it's just one opinion of the government saying that this is socially disgusting and everything. So we believe that because there's a whole variety and whole different interpretation to what they think, we believe that we should not, because government is just a one opinion, we believe that there are some people who can think that those socially regarded disgusting things, as government calls it, is actually not. And we believe that those differences of opinions will occur. And this is important because this means the government is somewhat controlling the mindset of what is socially regarded disgusting or not. And we believe that this actually might further lead to government abusing this power, restricting the art that is against the government ideology. And we believe that this is extremely harmful when we think that the art is actually based on the freedom of the individuals. And we believe that they should not restrict these things in the first place. So number two, even if art is something quantifiable as a society, whether we can legitimize actually restricting this or not. But before that, yes.
If you, according to your logic, you don't oppose the Charlie Hebdo case, that's portrayal about Allah.
We believe that this should be actually left on those people thinking that social backlash, because we believe that it's not a dire necessity for the government to restrict those things. We believe that the opinion should be left on those individuals and those societies to think that whether that is actually justifiable or not in the first place. So moving on to my second argument. So even if art is quantifiable as a society, whether we can still legitimize this. So we believe that state's role is to impose different kinds of ideas to the citizens because there are different people in society. As I said, not all people every individuals don't think and act in the same way. So we believe that we have to guarantee people's freedom of expression. The government says it's not absolute because when there's a third-party harm, we can actually mitigate these things. But we believe that in this context, this social backlash is enough, which I'll explain later. So we believe that freedom of expression is really important because it actually guarantees you the right to express freely. Why is this important? Because it leads to your self-worth and it leads to your identity, it leads to who you are. So if you, what you think and what you feel, if you cannot express those ideas in the way you want to, we believe that there's no meaning of existence as to what you want to do when you actually want to express things in those art. So the meaning to you, it actually disappears. So we believe that this is worse because, no thank you, we believe that there are different kinds of people and we believe that some freedom of expression is important. So the government side said that there's a dire necessity to this dire necessity, so we have to actually ban these art. But we believe that their burden of proof is to explain why this social backlash or social discourse does not solve this situation. So we believe that we can actually solve this in the situation. So we believe that social backlash, when they actually portray something that is really, really disgusting, like we believe that there's going to be some social backlash. People are not going to stand there and watch still. People are going to say, no, this is bad. So actually, this is bad. So we should actually restrict this. We believe that this is what the author of the art should get instead of the government restriction. Because in this case, social backlash is like a review you get from society. And we believe that this is important because government should not be imposing government should not be imposing the idea which is good and which is bad. We believe that society actually should reflect, because people who look at it will have the different interpretations. And so also because these art might be the only hope to live for someone. So let's say if you're living in a situation where the majority of people think that LGBT are strong, but if you lived in those situations, even if those art is labeled as like a socially disgusted drawing, we believe that if you're living in that context and if you're LGBTs, it's like your only hope to live. Just because the majority thinks that it's socially disgusting, we believe that we should not actually take away those drawings that might have a benefit to those people, because as I said, there's different people, and we think that this is important, and because government should respect every people that's living in the society, and because they have different identity, we believe that we're very proud to oppose
I thank the Leader of Opposition for her speech. Now I call upon Deputy Prime Minister to continue the government's case.
We want to live happily, comfortably. We don't want to be exposed, so disgusting portrayal in the public. We, government, want to harmonize all people. We want to respect the minority people's voice and also radical people's voice. But we need to draw a line to some extent by making restriction. We are not saying in this motion that banning all those things, but to some extent we have legitimacy to restrict and not decide where you can portray to express your idea or the age you should to portray exposing the people. We are government. We can reflect all people. That's why we can't see the individual to individual demand. That's why we need to generalize the what is legitimate and what is not legitimate. Thinking from the opposition bench's argument was let's do anything because we can't identify anyone. Then you don't do censorship to begin with? You totally allow the hate speech also? Because hate speech is also the different interpretation. If they are hate speech, some people think that this hate speech is a good reason for me to prosecute some people. It's good for me, let's be hate speech or something. But other people think that they have incapable to prosecute the other opponent's side, that they don't want to be hate speech. To some extent, this idea, even not only the art, but also hate speech or expression, we can say the arbitrary right. That's why we have the legitimacy. I'm going to give you 3 legitimate reasons for government. Firstly, all people have rights to walk public comfortably. Second, that unpredictable harm, unquantifiable, is the reason why we need to intervene. And lastly, citizen is stupid. That's why we need to control the mindset in the society. All battle is integrate. Let me point out their side that they said identify is important because every people have a different identity. So what? If there's a harm, if it is their expression have external negativity, we have to restrict them. That's why we banning hate speech, but that's why we are doing the censorship to begin with. This is a rebuttal, simple rebuttal toward LO. First of all people have rights to walk publicly comfortably. Because every people have the fundamental right that live happily, right? If they are walking inside, that there's a war, that art depiction, like the female is portrayed as slavery, as sex machine, like so offensive way. If there's a room for the owner of this community, we cannot say or protest this situation because there is a power imbalance. But girl who is JK high school girl have to go to the public school. It is a way to go to the school, right? They have to always in the morning have to walk this art by thinking disgusting in situation every day, every morning, right? In that occasion, we need to restrict this kind of art that no, you're not doing that by arbitrarily deciding, even though there's a dances that think it's good art, but to some extent some people are likely to feel this is disgusting. That's why we need to restrict this kind of owner's right to arting, right? That's why people have rights to walk comfortably, and it's fundamentally important. And it is more likely for the vulnerables who can't counter this idea, because if junior high school girl walk in the school that say that pornography disgusting me, it is difficult for them to say that. Because they're talking about sex machines idea, it's inevitably they have to be exposed to this kind of idea in the public school. That it's difficult. That's why inevitably affected. In that occasion, that's like convenience towards pornography situation. Children are likely to watch that. We have to restrict that. We arbitrarily deciding. Secondly, unpredictable harm, unquantifiable. or only from argument from the LO was it is unquantifiable, we need to reflect all people's idea, that's why we should not do that. No, because this is unquantifiable, we need to intervene to this situation. First of all, unquantifiable means, directly means unpredictable harm are likely to occur. For example, Charlie Hebdo case in the French newspaper company, the news editor write the portrait, the Allah's portrait. It's totally offensive for the Muslim, but we can understand how we can get that unexpected harm creating. That as a result, the newspapers company are killed in that occasion, and after that it creates more promotion than ISIS or terrorism in the society, which is totally controlling the European Union. It's totally offensive in the status quo. That's why news company, French people, not only the French people, but also other government people are regulated in that kind of situation. Second of all, even though this is consequence good, such like the music about nigger in the past in America, but right now we see this is benefit thanks to the nigger expression. It gives the power to the black people. Yeah, we see that. But on the process of that, the first time musicians see using the word nigger, which is offensive to the black people, they are the expense of the getting benefit for the future generation. Why they have to be exposed this kind of uncomfortable music expression? We think even though the consequence is good, on the process of that, there's more likely for the people who are vulnerable. That's why we need to restrict them, because they are inevitably they have to be affected. Go.
Okay, so explicitly sexual content is not the only thing people are offended by. For example, they can be offended by gay parades or feminist art galleries. Are you also going to restrict that, or are you only going to restrict this debate to pornography?
Yeah, if we recognize the context, like all people are likely to be affected inevitably, we have to restrict that. The difference is, or the minority movement difference is, that the gay pride parade is easily to have it balanced out, right? Because minority people, to get their privilege, they doing act like that. In that occasion, majority people just see, even they disgusting, that is not problem for the majority people. But some occasion that if majority people doing like that, the minority people inevitably can't counter that situation. That's the problem. That's why we go giving three lines about inevitably affection happen. And secondly, unquantifiable harm are created, and lastly, citizen is stupid. The controlling mindset is to some extent necessary to stabilize the country to get the benefit. For example, that's what we are doing, the censorship or educating morality, what is important, what is not important, because we draw a line that kindness is important for the people to live happily, because we recognize that different people's cultures exist in the United States. We want to harmonize all people live happily. That's why we need to some extent compromise the people who want to express the idea to make more better benefit for the society. That's why we propose. Thank you.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for his speech. Now I call upon Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue the opposition's case.
Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is not simply about whether we can restrict this or not, or how to protect these individuals in each paradigm. It is about a debate as state, can you preemptively determine what is disgusting or not, and based on that to be able to define and prevent and restrict these individuals' right to be able to express. We think that when the society and the state has not really defined what exactly is socially disgusting art to begin with, at the point at which state is going to randomly censor this art, that is exactly when you disenfranchise the minority within society. We don't think any case from the opening government side was able to tell us why this restriction in of itself can be justified in the first place. In my speech, I'll be answering two questions. Number one, why art in of itself is intertwined to the identity to individuals, and why state abusing this policy is extremely arbitrary, that in itself is harmful. And number two, how the status quo already have other counter-narratives to be able to tackle even the most extreme forms of art under status quo. Before that, few responses to the opening government side. So we think that it wasn't really clear coming from the opening comments, right? They talked about how minority are being disenfranchised right now, and that majority simply oppressing these minorities is bad. But the question is, if minority is disgusting to the majority, are they going to also restrict that as well? It doesn't really make any sense because not only majority simply oppresses these minority also does discuss majority. What exactly are we going to do on the side of affirmative? But second, their whole main case is that individuals are going to be deprived of their sense of security. They're going to be afraid of the situation. There's three responses to this argument. Number one, we already told you the definition of disgusting social art in itself is not really clear. It's extremely vague. If they want to talk about hate speech, that's completely different. Considering that hate speech in itself is something that is words that Koreans should die or so forth. It is more explicit in its form. But even in the case of hate speech, we have to recognize that we know that hate speech is bad because it is out there in the free market of expression. We know it's bad and we're able to condemn it. That's when we're able to know it's a negative thing. At the point at which you preemptively restrict these art, how in the world are you able to know hate speech in itself is something that's detrimental in the first place? If they want to talk about pornography, that's completely different in of itself as well. Because there are many people who actually likes and who actually thinks that pornography is something that's extremely good to be able to sexually satisfy in themselves. We don't think there was any definition coming from the opening government side. But fundamentally, what we told you from the leader of opposition, not responded by Deputy Prime Minister, is that art in of itself is uniquely up to interpretation. People with different experience, people who were taught in different kinds of schools, different kinds of family, different kinds of culture and environments, does interpret art differently, right? That's why we have to understand that certain people might see that art itself is something that's detrimental, is something that's extremely offensive, but other people within society also think that it's something that's positive. We don't think that states simply can say that this is negative and this is offensive, that's why we are going to restrict at all costs. But the second response, right? We have to understand that we're not forcing every single individual to suffer from these situations and to make these people look at those extreme, even if disgusting, art in the first place. Let us be comparative. We're talking about these people's rights to be able to not watch those art and these people's expression, right to be able to express these things. We say on a comparative, these people's right to be able to express is more important because as a consequence, we have to understand that if you don't want to look at that art and within streets or within this Joshi High School, I don't know, but you can actually move from there is other alternative that you can use. You can go to other distinction or other places, right? We agree that it's something that's hard, but in comparative, at the point at which you recognize that these people's only way to be able to express is by using the art, we think this is the only alternative that you guarantee these individuals is more important. We don't think that their choices and these people is extremely important. But third, even if we were to recognize that these people's right is extremely important, we already told you from the year of opposition that there's counter-narrative and backlash that exists already under status quo. When the Psychologists Art of Prophet Muhammad in 2008 in Denmark was released, the initial people who actually supported these art actually began to criticize those art because it has gone too far and has crossed the line because it is so offensive under status quo. That's why we already told you that freedom market and counter-narrative can exist under status quo. We don't think that as states you should restrict these art, which nicely move on to my first question of THBT.
What's the problem? Why the people want to portray the pornography in public? Why you portray it in public? Why you can
that naturally wants to substantive, right? We have to understand the state right now is going to abuse their power in the affirmative defense. Because we have to understand the definition of socially regarded disturbing in itself is not clear. That's why anything that state defined as something that's socially disturbing, you're going to censor and ban these things. Why is it extremely detrimental? We have to understand that if that country, for instance France and Spain, is inherently Islamophobic, you simply deny the arts of Muslims within that context. If countries such as African notion is inherently homophobic, you simply restrict all these homosexual art, two men kissing to each other within the arts in the affirmative defense. This itself is extremely detrimental considering it's extremely arbitrary. We have to understand that art itself is sometimes used as a form to be able to dismantle the stereotype within society. There are certain kinds of minority, black people, LGBT people, who are inherently being marginalized under status quo because they are being seen that LGBT is a disease and a woman simply cannot work and they're stupid at all costs. We think that art itself is an extreme beneficial way for you to be able to dismantle the stereotype. At the point at which you're able to restrict and restrict these art, we see these individuals won't be able to express even on the side of affirmative. We have to understand that state itself is a representative citizen and that it should respect all values as possible because there's different kinds of values and different kinds of people living in society, religious people, cultural people, ethnicity people, and nationality people within the society. Why is this expression extremely important? We have to understand that we already told you that the right of freedom of expression is highly intertwined to your identity. That's why we need to to answer the POI coming from the opening government side, it is important for you to be able to publicly recognize and publicly express these art because it's not situation of you being able to like privately being able to practice art, you need to be able to publicly tell these individuals that I'm a Muslim and that I'm not a terrorist at all situations, which this is always extremely important. That's why we have to understand that it's extremely problematic coming from the affirmative bench. They told us that you restrict, do you place restricted to areas, which is that in itself is extremely detrimental. Because if state decide, if state thinks that black people's art is extremely social disturbing, they are only going to restrict it to white community and not have white community to understand that this stereotype in itself is already distorted on the status quo. These individuals on the ground who is massively being disenfranchised will have no opportunity to be able to dismantle and tell these white people and to lead to any social cohesion on their side affirmative. But lastly, we have to understand that social perception change. As they conceded, in the case of nigger music, the nigger music itself is something that has changed through our time, right? That's why right now it might be disgusting, but in the future it might be something that's extremely beneficial. That's why we think that like leaving them up to the criticization and condemning is something that's better, because at the point at which you preemptively restrict these art and these expressions will never be able to express in the affirmative bench. We think that like backlash does exist, and the people that we're talking about in today's debate is that they do receive backlash, they do suffer that situation, but nonetheless they still want to express their art because they think that struggling in the predicament right now and being opt out from the extreme poor situation and to tell the white people that my right is as important as your right, that we should treat each other as sister and brother is extremely important. We think that art itself, because it is opted to interpretation and because it is extremely important to individuals in the identity, we don't think that affirmative bench have any justification to restrict this art. We have never been part of to oppose.
I thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for not dying during the speech. Now I call upon Member of Government.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, opening government talks about how people are harmed through this and freedom of art is not absolute. We in closing are going to tell you what is a fair priority of state protection. Why are these people who are harmed by this art should take the first priority in terms of state protection. That is the basis of my extension. I want to tell you three things. One, what kind of people states can prioritize to protect? Who are the group of people who are in the desperate need of state protection? And secondly, I'm going to talk to you about the subjectivity of arts, which they talked about, the state and art relationship. Why? Because it's subjective, we need to regulate. But thirdly, I'm going to talk to you the idea of ownership of public life, and that all people should have equal access to public life, rebuttals with integrity. So firstly, about what kind of people state needs to prioritize in terms of protection. But notice, Mr. Speaker, we are not talking about, in the first place, the controversial art in this debate to begin with. Let's read this motion. The motion said that, it is socially regarded as disgusting, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen.